much, Hugo, and good afternoon to the viewers. We have been making this call even before this motion in Tshwane, was put forward. We have been saying that it cannot be that we have instability across a number of municipalities in Gauteng. You would know that Johannesburg has also had about 6 mayors in a space of 3 years. There have been motions in Ekurhuleni and so on and so forth. And we've been saying, we cannot continue to have this. You would know that we hold the highest number or the second highest number of wards across, the province. And therefore, it affects, our public representatives as well, who, when services are not being delivered, they feel the brunt from the community who want answers. And therefore, we've been saying to the ANC, we need to then come around the table and talk about how do we bring stability, to these municipalities. But the issue that you're bringing here about what has happened in Tshwane, we've been engaging with the ANC at a national level and some structures at a local level. It is at the provincial level that we have been hitting, quite a very, very, hard wall, where the engagements have never really been, straightforward, has never been honest, where we would say this is what we would want to then do. There will be an initial agreement, and then something else happens. And this is why we are saying perhaps there needs to be a conversation at the national level.
Now, in your conversation with the President Cyril Ramaphosa, what are the expected outcomes, right? And just where are the areas of compromise, do you feel?
Well, look, there's quite a number of things. The ANC had said to us they want to work with us in Nelson Mandela, as an example, in Nelson Mandela Bay. They have indicated to us that they would require our support with the IFP in KZN, in eThekwini or Durban. And therefore, we are saying, this goes beyond what is happening in Gauteng or in Tshwane. It goes to what is happening at a national level. The amount of instability that is there at the municipal level is not something that it should go unanswered. And therefore, if we understand that with a maturing democracy, there is going to be a need to have coalition governments, not only at a national level, at a provincial level, and also now more and more at a local level. We now need to then find a way in which we're able to then converse and be able to then work together. And this is the conversation that we are saying at a provincial level, at least at this point, we seems to be hitting a brick wall. And this is why we are saying maybe the two national leaders, i.e. President Cyril Ramaphosa and John Steenhuisen, will need to then engage at that level and say, are we able to then talk about how do we bring instabilities across municipalities? And there's modalities that, can be engaged on in that particular meeting, where we can look at, call it the confidence and supply, where, even if it's an ANC-run government, we can hold each other to account. But that also ensuring that we're able to not have these motions, being passed every other day. And this is, some of the things that are going to be put forward. Whether, there will be coalitions or whether there will be, as I said, the confidence and supply. These are the modalities that we'll be discussing that meeting.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Tshwane and certainly the shortcomings that have come through. Just how much accountability does the DA take for this vote or this motion of no confidence that was shown in former Mayor Celia Brink?
Look, there's been a whole lot of things that have been spewed out there. Actually, we find it very interesting that some of these things will be coming from Action SA, who have been part of this coalition for 2.5 years. You would remember that a month ago, they were there celebrating, the victories of, the awards that, Tshwane has won from Salga in terms of, being the most improved when it comes to finances, amongst other, awards that they've been winning. They were there to celebrate the fact that once and for all now we seem to be getting to the tail end of the Hammanskraal problem with the water. They were there when we were talking about finally now being able to save up to 500 million in terms of the call it the waste removal contracts and removing quite a lot of corruption that has been taking place there. Yet, they celebrate that, and then a week later they come and say, well, there's nothing that has been done and they don't want to be part of this government. So we were wondering which one is it. I mean, you cannot in one end say that you're happy about the progress that has been made and you are, excited about what is happening and you are, seeing a good future for the municipality with your partners. And yet a week later, you come and say something else. And this is something that has been very much, surprising to us. We did reach out to them through the Coalition Oversight Group, which is a group that has been formed of all the political parties that were part of the coalition, to then ensure that, whenever there would be any disputes, that those disputes could be taken and be resolved in that particular space. And I can tell you now categorically, there's never been any dispute that hasn't been resolved. All the issues that had been brought had been resolved. And all of us, were quite surprised when they were saying that, they didn't want to work with us because they felt that they had issues that they needed to raise that were not heard.
Now, the people of South Africa are looking for selfless leaders. Leaders who will put themselves before their own political interests. But this doesn't seem to be the case, particularly when you look at the frequency of the votes of no confidence and the musical chairs, as you've called it. How do you think this can be addressed? And do you agree that that is a problem?
It is a huge problem, Hugo. And this is why we are saying that there should also be legislation. That's why the DA had actually proposed that there be a bill and a legislation that talks to how do we regulate coalitions, because it cannot be, and this is going to be, realistically is going to be the future of politics and the outcomes thereof of elections in a number of, areas, both locally, provincially, at a national level going forward as the democracy matures here in South Africa. And therefore, we now need to then look at, first of all, a threshold that can be implemented. But second of all, we need to then say, how do you then regulate how coalitions are put together? And also look at, having call it a Chapter 9, if you like, institution that can actually then be put in there like an ombudsman of some kind that, can also deal with, these kind of issues and squabbles that are there. But more importantly, we now need to then make sure that whenever there are coalitions and people are acting in their own interest instead of in the interest of, the voters must remember that they must punish any other party, that does that, going forward. And I think that's the only way that, political parties and their leaders will begin to then respect the voters out there.
You've talked about a proposal of a bill of sorts to monitor the frequency of this continual musical chair, if you will. Just how far have you gone with that proposal? How far has the DA gone with that proposal? Do you expect it to see the light of day?
Well, it's already been discussed somewhat in Parliament when we're talking about the threshold as an example. So it's already in the pipeline. Hopefully, this is something that should be, sorted out either before, we get to the 2026 local government, because we're going to need to then have some kind of regulations around, where we're going as a country. Because I said, if you look at, our democratic system here in South Africa and our electoral system here in South Africa, it is going to be inevitable that you're going to have, a whole lot of municipalities, provinces, and actually even now we've seen at a national level where no one party will actually get a majority. So we now need to then fast track this. We need to then get on with it, and we need to make sure that, it gets to a stage where we can possibly start implementing it come 2026 and going forward.
Now, if we look at the Gauteng provincial government as an example of failure of the DA and the ANC to work together, how hopeful are you that John Steenhuisen, I assume, would represent the DA in those conversations with President Cyril Ramaphosa, will be in getting to some sort of a common ground?
Can I tell you, Hugo, that at a national level, and I've been part of those national meetings, there is very much, good understanding and mutual respect. And the conversations have always been cordial. Even with the local structures, that has been the case. The problem here is what is happening at a provincial level. And this is why we are saying maybe, we might need to then have, that national intervention that is taking place, because clearly at a provincial level, there seems to be, we seem to be hitting, a brick wall here. you would know that, when this government was put together at a national level, there was actually a mutual understanding that, no one party has gotten the 50+1, and therefore there was a need to then engage and make sure that people are able to then find each other. And that even in the KZN, there was that good spirit that, people went into the negotiations and engaged in that particular way to then ensure that, they are able to then put a government together in KZN. And we are now saying that spirit must also now flow into Gauteng. And not only the provincial level, but also at the municipal level. And I can tell you right now, we have been approached by the Ekurhuleni, leadership there, and some in Tshwane as well, who have said that, they have, a wish to work with us. But when it comes then to their provincial counterparts, that looks like something that, is not finding favor with them. And this is why we are saying that perhaps, we're going to need to have a national conversation about what is happening here.
All right, take it to the highest office, Solim Simanga, DA Gauteng leader. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for speaking to us on Newsfeed, the PM edition, clarifying issues for us on what he's called musical chairs and the desire by the DA to speak to President Cyril Ramaphosa.